Rising Star Publicity, and I work with experts and I help them to become known in their fields, they become recognized experts in the media. And part of all of that is to help them communicate their value, help them communicate what they do to the right audience. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. So this is kind of a mix of marketing and personal branding. So if you've heard those terms and you've done any of that work in your classes, we're taking that to the next level today, all that personal branding stuff. So, so in the chat, you will see a link to some worksheets that I put together, and I would like you to go grab those. Those are in Google Doc. Grab those and make a copy for yourself, because I want you to start working through this. I want you to save this, and because you can refer back to this over and over again. Okay, so as you're going and doing that, I want to give you some just tips and guidelines on elevator speeches as we before we get into like putting yours together. So an elevator pitch, as you probably know, is just a short way to introduce yourself when you meet someone. So the idea of calling it an elevator pitch is, you know, you meet someone on the bottom level, you go to of a building in an elevator, you go to the top, and by the time you hit the top, you're done with your pitch. Okay, you're done telling them about yourself. So that's where elevator pitch came from. I call it an introduction because you're basically just introducing yourself, introducing what you're looking to do, your credibility, all those kinds of things. So a couple of tips before we get into the nitty-gritty. I want you to think about when you are introducing yourself or doing your elevator pitch, a lot of what you communicate is actually not your words, it's your nonverbals. So I want you to think about your energy. Your energy really does matter when you are doing an elevator pitch. So I want you to think of standing up straight or sitting up straight, having really good posture, kind of maybe even leaning forward a little bit if you are sitting, because when you're leaning back, you know, you kind of look like you're a little bit lethargic or whatever, but you want to be engaged and you want to show that you are interested in actively listening. So that those kinds of body language cues go a really far way when you are giving your elevator pitch. And if you happen to be the kind of person who is shy and you don't like to look at someone in the eye, I would say just continuously practice to do that. And one tip that I've always heard is you can look kind of between the eyes if you have to, or look at the tip of the nose, but do try your best to look at that person in the eye when you're speaking to them, because it really does go a long way. And if you have to, just look somewhere else on their face. Also, learn how to do a really good solid handshake when you meet someone, because that usually comes when you're doing your elevator pitch and you're in person. When we get in person again, you will be doing a handshake. So your handshake is really firm and solid, but it's not like crushing, but it's not also limp. So that goes in line with delivering your elevator speech and your body language. Those things are really important. And I mentioned this a minute ago. I do want you to practice out loud. So after we get through all this today, I do want to encourage you, start practicing and start running this every day, because you don't want to necessarily memorize your elevator speech word for word, because then you're going to sound a little robotic. But I want you to practice it so it comes naturally to you, so it doesn't feel like something that's just uncomfortable or something that you're not familiar with doing. And when you practice, I would say not to look in the mirror, because when you actually deliver your elevator speech, you're not going to be looking at yourself. But when you're looking in a mirror, that's what's looking back at you. And that starts to, get all kinds of crazy. So practice by, looking, like set a pillow up, or practice with a friend or a family member or a stuffed animal or something, so that you are speaking out loud. Because when you think something in your head, but it doesn't actually come out your mouth, it's not really practicing or rehearsing. Elevator speech, be brief and be honest. Sometimes people feel like, oh gosh, I don't have enough credibility or I don't have enough experience. And I would challenge you, if you're thinking that, I would absolutely challenge you on that, because coming out of the opportunities that you all have at the DACC, I know that you have a ton of credibility and a lot of experience to lean on. And you probably have other volunteer work or school activities, or maybe you're an officer in a club, or other kinds of things that come into this. So don't for a minute think that you're not credible, because you absolutely are. And you don't need to oversell. So lean on things that are true and factual and be brief about it. Also, I want you to let you know there's not one right way to deliver an elevator speech. What we are going to walk through today is a way that I created. It's something that I actually use with my clients who are adults trying to do the same thing. How do I introduce myself? So this work is ongoing. So please download what I have there for you, and you can keep it and go back to it. You will refine it. It will change over time because you change over time. Your experience changes over time. Maybe the focus of what you're doing will change. The audience that you're speaking to will change. So there's lots of ways to use this framework that I'm going to share with you today and make it yours so that it feels good and it feels relevant to you. So again, how you use this will depend on your audience. So if you're in an interview, for example, you're not going to have to say, you know, like, my name is, you know, Meredith Liepelt. They already know your name. So again, like if you're just meeting someone, you will want to say, you know, what your name is. And so there's just, again, your audience, always be aware of who your audience is and what information they may or may not need to have. And this may become a little bit more clear as we start to go through these steps. So I hope you have all had a chance to copy that document, the worksheets that I gave to you, because we're just going to start to go through them right now. And the idea of what I put together, there are 5 steps to putting together your elevator speech. So there's basically more or less 5 sentences, and there's a structure and a format to this that we're going to walk through. Okay, so the first step is very, very simple. Okay, this is what you'll see there, where you say, this is your basic opener. Okay, so you might say, hi, my name is Meredith Liepelt, and I'm a senior at DACC, and I'm studying marketing, or whatever your topic is. Okay, so this is a template that I want you right now to go ahead and fill out, write down, you know, in your Google Doc, or if you like to write with a pen and paper, go ahead and fill this in, because at the very end, you're going to have all 5 of these steps with all 5 of these templates ready to go for your draft of your elevator speech. So I'm going to be quiet for a few seconds while you just kind of write all this in. Hi, my name is name, and I'm a whatever year at this school studying whatever it is you're studying. Okay, that was pretty simple. Hopefully you've got that one down. Okay, let's move on to the next page, where step 2. This part of your elevator speech is all about you. Okay, so this is where you get to talk about what it is you're doing, what you are enjoying, what you like to do, what you see as what you like to do in the world. Okay, so I have 3 different templates here. The first template is about you, is very simple. And I have some words in brackets that you can either choose from, or again, use your own words, whatever feels right and comfortable for you. But you'll just fill these in to create your own elevator speech. So you could say, I'm, for example, passionate, or I love, or I enjoy. And then you can say helping, guiding, or creating, and then who or what. Okay, so these really come alive in these examples. So I have 4 examples here for you, and I'm going to read these to you. I'm passionate about teaching and caring for preschoolers. Okay, so you see how that's, I'm passionate about teaching and caring for preschoolers. So 3 things that you fill in there. Another example, I enjoy training student athletes to achieve peak performance. So you just fill these things in. I love creating beautiful pastries for weddings and events. I enjoy car maintenance and repair and working in a large dealership. Okay, so that is template number 1. Simple enough, I hope. You can just fill that in. Now, template number 2 here actually takes template number 1 and just expands on it by adding a phrase at the end of that. And the phrase will either be why or how. Okay. So for example, you could take that first one. I'm passionate about teaching and caring for preschoolers. And here's where you add something on. So they have a safe environment to learn and explore and are prepared to have a great start in kindergarten. Okay. So you're adding a little bit to the end of that again, it just goes to show a little bit of your awareness of what you're doing and your credibility. Another example is I enjoy training student athletes to achieve peak performance through proper nutrition and conditioning. Again, you're saying a little bit about the how and the why. So you can take that template number 1 and expand on it with just a little bit more in template number 2 if you want to and if it's relevant to you, okay? Now, template number 3 is a completely different strategy, okay? So this is more of like an analogy or putting something in context. So let's say, for example, you're going into a career that is a little bit hard to explain, or like say, for example, like you're in robotics and you're talking to your grandparents and they're like, what the heck is robotics? All that kind of stuff. So I have a way for you to handle this. So this would be good if you're just out, meeting people, or maybe you're, talking with another teacher, or you're talking with just someone out there, maybe someone at your church, or, wherever you congregate with other people, if and when we congregate again. Put it in context and tell a story. Okay. So for example, you could say something like, have you ever seen, and then you describe a situation. Okay. And then you can say, well, that's what I'm doing. Okay. So here's examples of how this will play out. This is for if you're in digital design. So have you ever seen short videos on social media or a website that explain a big concept using images and motion graphics? Well, I'm learning digital design techniques so I can do this for a large advertising agency. Okay, so they might still not know exactly what you do, but at least they can say, oh, I've seen those kinds of explainer videos, and I get that that's what they're doing. Okay, another example is, how when you go to the dentist and there's a person there who polishes your teeth and helps the dentist as she fills in cavities and does fillings? Well, that's what I do. Okay, so some of these things can be just like really short. This should be very conversational. I don't want you to think of this elevator speech as this rote robot kind of thing. It can be very conversational. Another example is this is kind of the analogy. So you could say, if you're in robotics, you could say, so you've heard of the Roomba, right? That the autonomous vacuum that sweeps your room without you lifting a finger. Well, I'm studying robotics, so I can work on creating similar products for homes or businesses, or even possibly NASA. Okay, so this is kind of like an analogy, or you put it into context. So again, thinking of your audience, you obviously would not use this if you're in a job interview because they know what the job is. You would use this if you meet somebody and they say, what, oh, you're in digital design? Well, what is that? You can use these kinds of things to explain what it is that you do. Okay, so I'm going to be quiet for about a minute. I want you to pick either the template number 1 or template number 1 and 2 together, or think of number 3, where you could maybe start to think of an analogy to explain what you do. Okay, so I will be quiet for a minute while you do that work. Okay, so we're going to keep going here. So far we have your introduction, a brief introduction, a little bit about you. The next step on the next page is all about your credibility. Okay, so this comes down to, your work that you've done at the DACC, maybe your internships, your work experience, any kind of leadership positions that you've held over the years, all those kinds of things come into your credibility. And when you can speak about your credibility, it really makes the adults go, "Oh, wow, I'm shocked and I'm amazed that you have all this experience, and I know that you have all this experience because of the programs that you're all in." So as I'm going through this, I want you to think about, like, kind of go on a little treasure hunt. Like, what are all my credibility points? Like, what program have I been in? What leadership positions have I taken on? Maybe like awards, or who knows, accolades. Things like that. That you could potentially add into your credibility piece here. Okay, so I've got 4 templates here to walk you through. And these are not all that different from each other, but I just wanted to give you some options and just some different ways of communicating this, because again, I want you to pick something that feels good to you so that you don't feel like you're stuck in a box, and that I'm telling you exactly what to say. Okay, so template number 1, you can say something like, "So far, I have done this and used these skills at this particular place." Okay, so that's the template there. So examples. "So far, I've studied haircutting, styling, and coloring and perming through the 2-year cosmetology program at DACC." Okay. Or you could say, "This spring, I finished an internship with a cybersecurity company in Delaware, and I'm the vice president of my school's IT club." Okay, so those are all huge credibility points. So it's very easy for us to undervalue some of these things that we do. And this is the same conversation I have with my adult clients. I really want you to take a look at, like, going through this program is quite a feather in your cap. And I want you to be able to spotlight that and showcase all these things that you've been doing. Template number 2, you could say something like, "To hone or gain my skills, I have worked at or volunteered for, done these things, and I'm ready for whatever is the next step." Okay, here's how that would work out. Here's an example. "To gain the technical skills required, I'm graduating this May from the fire service program at the DACC and will be qualified as a firefighter or EMT." All right. So again, this is just like, to gain these skills, I've done this, and now I'm ready for that. That's all that template is about. Um, Template number 3 is very similar. You can just kind of flip flop this around, and you can say, "Through my education or my volunteer work, I'm now experienced in this and that and the other thing." Okay, so here's an example of how that might work. "Through my 2 years of education at the DACC and internships with the Delaware Police Department, I've learned how to make arrests, investigate crimes, and handle stressful police situations." Um, so you can see how that one works. And credibility builder template number 4 is, "I've developed the skills necessary to do this job by working in this internship, or volunteering here, or being in student government here," or whatever the case may be. So here's how that one could work. "I've developed the skills necessary for golf course technician through my education and internships in power sports and diesel technology at DACC." So again, I want you just to take a look at these templates. You will pick one of these to put in your elevator speech after the introduction, the one thing that you're going to say about you, and then you're going to say one of these things about your credibility. Pick one of these templates and just start plugging in some things and see what comes up for you. Okay, now I will be quiet for about a minute if I can. Go ahead and get started. Okay, we're going to start coming back together here. Because so far, what we've done is we've talked about your introduction, we've talked about you, we've had a sentence about your credibility. Now we're going to get into what is your goal? What are you looking to do? What is really coming up next for you? Okay, so I have 2 templates here to walk you through that. So literally you can just say, my goal is to do this for that particular person. My goal is to what and for whom. Okay, so ways that this could play out. My goal is to help stop global warming by learning about and using the latest bio research techniques. My mission is to become a medical assistant by learning all I can about high quality patient care and work for a family practice doctor. Or you can say, my goal is to gain the education and internships necessary to work in an entry-level position in the industry after college. Okay, so again, this is communicating, what are you looking to do next? Are you looking for a job? Are you looking for an internship? Are you looking, like, is this a college interview? Like, what are you looking to do next? I want you to be clear about that. Another template is you can say, after I graduate in May, my goal is to X, or after I'm out of school in May, my goal is to X. Okay, so I have an example here, a couple examples. After I graduate in May, my goal is to study hospitality in college and further explore hotel management and food service. Okay, or you could say, after I graduate in May, I'm looking for a job as a sheet metal roofer. Okay, again, these can be very short and succinct. You don't have to tell a whole huge story here. You're trying to communicate to someone who it is you are, what's your credibility, what is your goal. Okay, that's your step in this sentence, this sentence in your elevator speech. So jot down your ideas for how you would fill out your goal template here, and then we'll come back in 30 seconds or so. Okay, hopefully you're wrapping that up a little bit. So far we're layering this. We're going in layers so that at the end of this you have a full elevator speech. You've got an intro, you've got about you, you've got your credibility, you've got your goals, and now we're going to wrap it up. And again, this will depend on your audience, because you'll see as we go through these, and these aren't even templates. You could just copy and paste these, okay? It will depend on who you're speaking to, like what you want to say. But this is what I call your call to action templates. And that's actually a marketing term. Call to action means, what's the action that you want your audience to take? So if you're speaking to someone in your industry, the action you might want them to take is, can you tell me about the industry? Or can you introduce me to somebody? Or do you know of any jobs? Or something like that. So I have some examples here of calls to action, which will depend on your audience. You could wrap it up by saying, who do you know that I could talk to within the industry to learn more? Again, just a simple question. You just have to ask. Do you know of anyone currently hiring? It's a great question. People love to help others, especially all you young whippersnappers out there. They're going to love helping you. So if you ask them a question, they will probably move mountains to try to help you. Okay. You could say, listen, as an expert in this industry, I'd love to hear your perspective on the latest trends and outlooks. Okay, so you're just asking for advice. What's going on in the industry out there? What do you see? Or you could say, I'd love to attend, the name of the school and continue my education, because of your reputation in this industry. So if you're in a college interview, for example, you might want to use that, because I would assume that if you're interviewing at that college that they do have a good reputation in your industry. So again, you're just wrapping it up saying, I would love to attend, this college because of your reputation or that kind of thing. So again, these aren't templates. These are just things that you can use. You can also just springboard from this and come up with your own call to action. What is it that would be helpful for you after you're talking to this person that you could either say to them, or a question you could ask them? How can you elicit their help? Okay, so just maybe mark on your paper like which one of these resonates with you the most for right now. Because then what we do is you just put all these together. You put sentence 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 together. And I put an example here for you, and I'm just going to read this to you so you can see how this could come across. Okay, so hi, my name is Meredith Liepelt. I'm a senior at XYZ High School studying early childhood education. I am really passionate about teaching and caring for preschoolers so they have a safe environment in which to learn and explore and are prepared to have a really great start in kindergarten. Through my education and internships at the DACC, I have learned that I actually excel at planning and curriculum development and performing assessments. My goal is to be a daycare teacher for a preschool in Columbus starting in June. And since you work in this industry, I'm wondering what advice could you give me about getting started? Okay, so you can see how, I had to read this because this isn't really my elevator speech, but when you start to see this, you can just think in your head, I've got to introduce myself. I got to tell them a little bit about myself. I need to give a little bit of my credibility. I need to tell them what my goal is, and then I need to ask them a question, my call to action. Those are the things that you can be thinking in your head as you're doing your elevator speech. Okay, so that's it. That's the content that I had planned for you for today. And I do want to just go back and reiterate, this takes practice, okay? These are simple templates and things like this, but this does take practice so that it can flow easily, and that I want to encourage you to use the words that come naturally to you. Like, you don't have to use my words. I want you to use words that you feel comfortable using, and definitely practice so that you're ready to go. So go out there and make great things happen for yourself.
That was excellent. Thank you. Excellent session. Let's transition to an opportunity for students to ask questions. So I'm going to stop recording. Let's see. So I believe